Let's bring in my next guest, Heritage Foundation Senior Legal Fellow, John Malcolm. Great to see you, John. Your reaction on this breaking news happening just now?
I think it's remarkable. I mean, so the House Democrats did not allow the House Republicans to call the witnesses whom they wanted to call. They called the shots in terms of setting the rules in the House. And now they want to call the shots for the rules in the Senate. The Constitution gives the House the sole power to impeach and the Senate the sole power to try impeachments. And Nancy Pelosi is trying to leverage these allegations to try to take control of the Senate process. And the Senate will not and should not let her compromise the Senate's independence or its own constitutional prerogative.
Well, it undercuts the whole push for impeachment. I mean, doesn't a fair trial apply to the accused, not the accuser? Is this more guilty until proven innocent? I mean, does President Trump need to seek a writ of mandamus from the U.S. Supreme Court to get his constitutional due process rights to a speedy trial?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Sorry. Yeah, well, I don't know whether the Supreme Court is going to step in, at least at this stage, but it is certainly guilt by accusation. This is the equivalent of a prosecutor bringing charges and then saying, well, I've damaged the reputation of the person who's accused. I'm going to try and tar and feather them in the press, but I'm not going to let them have their day in court. And that is as blatantly partisan as it gets. And I frankly don't think that the American people, any fair-minded American, is going to stand for that.
Well, it feels unconstitutional. And by the way, Democrats like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi have talked for weeks about the urgency of impeachment and, that they needed to stop President Trump. They need to urgently do this. Let's listen to what Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said today. Watch this.
By the Speaker's own standards, the standards she set, she's failed the country. The case is not compelling, not overwhelming, and as a result, not bipartisan. The failure was made clear to everyone earlier this week when Senator Schumer began searching for ways the Senate could step out of our proper role and try to fix the House Democrats' failures for them. And it was made even more clear last night when Speaker Pelosi suggested that House Democrats may be too afraid to even transmit their shoddy work product to the Senate.
So they are accused of violating their own precedents and their own rules and now, trying to tell the Senate how to do its job. Do you think that Senator Mitch McConnell and the Senate can go ahead with it anyway and maybe the Democrats would just boycott it? What do you think?
Well, I think what they can try to do is amend the rules to say that the House of Representatives has to present the articles of impeachment within a date certain, and that if they don't do so, then the case would be summarily dismissed for want of prosecution. Impeachment is an extraordinary remedy, and it is brought because the House of Representatives and Senate basically believes that there is a miscreant who is so bad in the Oval Office that we can't wait until the next election. The person has to be removed immediately. And now the House is undercutting all arguments by saying, well, maybe we can hold off until the next election. Well, if you were going to do that, why did you undertake this impeachment inquiry that has been gut-wrenching for the country in the first place?
I want to ask my team, let's start showing that how just 6 months after the president was inaugurated, Democrats 9 times introduced impeachment articles or resolutions to impeach. Let's pop that up as we talk about what is happening right now with Senate Republicans, Lindsey Graham, Chuck Grassley, Ron Johnson. They're all, John, they're now talking about planning to reportedly interview at least 5 former top aides to former Vice President Joe Biden and ex-Secretary of State John Kerry, looking into whether Hunter Biden and that Ukrainian natural gas company that he sat on the board of benefited from exclusive access to the Obama administration. Your reaction to that story?
Yeah, no, look, you don't find what you don't look for. And the Democrats' narrative is that, this is all debunked and been discredited. I think that there is a prima facie case that is worth investigating about exactly what was going on with Burisma and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And if the House is unwilling to take it up and are going to play these sorts of games with respect to these articles of impeachment, perhaps the Senate will take this up.
You remember, these former Obama officials reportedly met with Burisma lobbyists in 2015 and 2016. Reportedly, Senator Lindsey Graham has been talking about the timing of those meetings and the pressure campaign that followed, in which Joe Biden reportedly demanded Ukraine fire its top prosecutor who at the time was looking into Burisma for corruption. Joe Biden has denied acting with his son's interests in mind. Your reaction to that?
Well, look, there's no question. In December of 2015, the New York Times reported that Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor general, that's equivalent of their attorney general, in Ukraine, was investigating Burisma and its president and founder, Mykola Zlochevsky. In February of 2016, they raided Zlochevsky's home and seized his assets. And immediately after that, Burisma's lobbyist is trying to get high-level meetings at the State Department, invoking Hunter Biden's name. Vice President Biden is on the phone repeatedly with Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. Victoria Nuland, the Assistant Secretary of State, comes out and demands that Shokin be fired. And then Biden has a call with President Poroshenko and says, you're not going to get $1 billion in loan guarantees unless Shokin is fired. And lo and behold, Shokin is fired and has signed an affidavit saying that when he was let go, he was told that the reason he was let go is because the Bidens were unhappy that this investigation was going on. Now, those are facts. There may be explanations for those facts. Perhaps the Bidens are as pure as, newly fallen snow, but it is at least warrants an investigation.
Let's show The Hill magazine is now reporting, quote, Democrats fear Trump could win re-election despite impeachment. The president has tied his highest approval rating under Quinnipiac polling. More voters, according to CNN polls and Gallup polls, show voters oppose impeachment even after the hearings. We're now, it seems, in the mode of preemptive impeachment to stop the president from being elected. Let's talk about this. Is it your sense that House Democrats now know that their present impeachment case is weak, and that is why they are now asking the D.C. Court of Appeals to get the Mueller grand jury probe materials released to them so they can start another round of impeachment?
Well, I don't know whether they think the case is weak. One thing that's for sure is that they've known from the beginning that there was no way, based on the evidence that they have, that the president was going to be convicted in the Senate and removed from office. And I think that they are trying to keep alive their narrative that, the fix is in and that this is a dirty guy and he's withholding evidence and they're going to try to string this out as long as possible. But they went down this road and they have filed these charges. And having now filed these charges, the president is entitled to his day in court, and that court is in the well of the Senate.
We should just remind, this is the reporting we've been finding, at least a dozen exculpatory statements by Ukrainian leaders saying they didn't even know about a quid pro quo, that the military aid was being stalled and held up. They didn't know until it was publicly reported until the end of August. Final word, John?
Yeah, no, look, President Zelensky has said he didn't feel particularly pressured. At the end of the day, not only did the Ukrainians get $391 million that Congress had appropriated, they got another $30-some-odd million in Javelin anti-tank missiles to use against the Russians that the Obama administration had refused to provide.
John, thank you so much. Good to see you. Next up, Iran.